Thank you all for joining us today for the faculty panel. And I think right now we have most of our faculty panelists with us. And employers often have questions about making connections with faculty because this can be a great way to establish your organization's presence on campus and connect with students in specific majors. We have a wonderful panel of 8 faculty members joining us here today, and you can see our faculty panelists here on the slide. My name is Chandra Lane, and I'll be moderating our faculty panel for today. I serve as the Associate Director for Outreach and Engagement here in the JMU Career Center. I want to thank each of our faculty panelists who are joining us today. They each have some unique experiences and perspectives that should be very informative for your recruiting efforts. We do have some questions prepared for each faculty member, and we will also be leaving time at the end for questions that you all would like to pose to any of our faculty panelists. Feel free to add questions to the chat, and we'll get to them kind of at that point in the session. One note for our faculty panelists, we would love to have you all on screen when you're answering questions if possible, but if you're joining us from home and have had issues with internet bandwidth in the past, feel free to turn your video off for this session. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. And Kay Harrison, we have the first question for you. Kay, are you there?
I am, and I'm sorry that I can't join by video because I'm at home with a bad internet connection. So I hope you can hear me clearly.
That is just fine. We can hear you well. So Kay, our question for you, and Kay is coming to us from the College of Health and Behavioral Studies. Can you share some of the ways that you have connected your students with employers in the past? Things like career track, speaking in classes, both in person and virtual.
Sure. So first, thank you for having me. This is exciting to be able to talk to employers because when I feel like as a professor, when you bring the employers into the classroom, you often validate what we try to say all the time to the students.
All right, let's return to Kay in just a moment. Next, I can go ahead and move to our College of Arts and Letters panelist, Jennifer Peaks-Meese. Jennifer, are you there?
I am here.
Wonderful, welcome.
Thanks.
So our question for you is that your students generally study a traditional liberal arts curriculum, and their programs can lead to such a wide variety of career paths. What do you think are their biggest strengths, and what qualifies them for work in a variety of different fields and settings?
Yeah. And just to clarify, I'm in the College of Arts and Letters, and I teach specifically in the School of Communication Studies. So I'm going to answer this question, I think, with some respect to the whole of the College of Arts and Letters, but I think it's particularly relevant to my experience in the School of Communication Studies. I think what our students really bring to the table is that they learn how to read context. They learn how to analyze, read context, and they learn how to figure out what the rules of the game are very quickly, because that's what they've learned, whether that is through literature, whether it's by looking at historical context, whether it's by looking at organizational context. I think that's a really valuable skill that allows them to pick up additional skills quickly, to figure out what is important and what's not important in a given organizational context. So I think that's really, if I had to think about a skill that really spans across our students in the College of Arts and Letters, I would say that's it. They can read context, they can figure out the rules of the game pretty quickly. They also, I would say, have the ability in doing that to assess different kinds of information, which we know is so much more important in an age where there is so much information coming at us so quickly, and having to choose, what information is important and what are the consequences of different information getting spread throughout the organizations we're a part of. I think that they also have that ability, right, to figure out how to assess information and how to use information in that sense. And then the other thing is, I think all of this sort of fits into the idea that most of the College of Liberal Arts, we're not training our students for a specific career, right? We're not training them to be an accountant. We're not training them to be a nurse. So that's why they have to learn how to read the context so quickly. And I think what that ultimately ends up contributing to is the capacity to understand the context as being constructed and created, and therefore they see themselves as participants in that creation, and they see that the way they act in the world, the way they act in their organizations is part of their building of who they are, but also building of the actual organization. So they see their ability to not just succeed in the organization, but succeed at helping to build the organization into the thing. So they don't just figure out the rules of the game, they understand that the rules of the game are something that's in play and that they can help to create and improve those rules going forward. So I would say those are really the things that I think of as in terms of our students' strengths.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. And that also serves as a nice segue to the other question that we had for you, kind of thinking about arts and letters students. What advice do you give your students when they embark on a job search?
Yeah, I think along those lines, because our students, and our students go into so many different things. They end up in all kinds of career paths. They end up being CEOs of medical device organizations. They end up, in recruiting, like everybody on this call. They end up, in nonprofit organizations. They're all over the place. But what I try and teach them is that to not only know their skill sets, but to know their contribution. And so what I mean when I tell the students that is that they all have their own individual gifts, right? And a lot of times what we think is normal or easy or obvious is actually our gift. And your gift isn't something, and your contribution isn't something that just applies to a particular job. It applies to your entire career path. So maybe you're somebody who has the ability to really see two sides of an issue and bring those two sides together. Maybe you're the person who is always paying attention to the way the details fit into the larger context. Maybe you're the person who is really good at following up and making sure all of the details and the tasks are in place, right? So they all have different skill sets. And so I'm always trying to help them figure out what is their unique, not just their skill sets, but what's their unique contribution that's part of their personality. And the other thing, back to the point about context, is I just trying to remind them that to a certain extent, they create their own paths. And I have, several students coming out of the organizational communication program who have literally created their own jobs. So they have either gone into an entry-level job or they've done an internship, and at some point have the courage to go to their superiors and say, here's what I see going on in this organization, and here's what I think you need to do to fix it. And very often they're hired to do the job, right? And so, helping them see that they have unique contributions and that they have the ability to a certain extent, with a sense of humility, to create their own path in that organization.
Love that. That sounds absolutely remarkable. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Kay, are you back with us? All right. We'll go ahead and keep trying to reconnect with Kay. Next on our list of panelists, we have John from the College of Education, Dr. Almerode. So our question for you is, due to the pandemic, as we enter this new academic year, teachers are being required to upskill or enhance their existing skills given new conditions, or reskill. And this would be learning entirely new competencies. How are you preparing your students to upskill and reskill as future teachers?
Hi, first of all, thank you for having me. I was excited to be a part of this, certainly given the opportunity to talk about what's happening in our public schools. and how teachers are indeed upskilling, reskilling, however you want to describe it. In the College of Education, our primary focus is on foundational principles and foundational ideas that actually allow us to engage with our graduates and engage with our current students and help support them in any educational context. So let me give you a specific example. The principles of how we learn. So the science of learning has exploded over the last 15 years. And so we have a pretty good understanding, a very good understanding of how students learn. We also have a really good understanding of what is effective teaching and learning. There's often this misconception that we don't really understand. We know a lot about teaching and learning, and we know a lot about how people learn. Those principles actually are context independent. So how a 7-year-old learns in a desk, the same principles apply if they're at their dining room table. So whether they're on the couch or in the classroom, the laboratory or the living room, the principles behind how we learn and the strategies, ideas, and approaches that lead to the greatest learning gains are the same. What has to be adjusted is the means by which we allow learners to engage in those strategies, ideas, and approaches, and the way that we capitalize on that. And so one of the things that we've tried to really zero in on is to say, look, it doesn't require a new skill set. It doesn't require actually reskilling. It does require upskilling. In other words, if we know classroom discussion, engaging learners in academic dialogue doubles the rate of learning, that is a well-established idea. It doubles the rate of learning. Whether they're at home or in the classroom doesn't matter, but how do we then find the right tool that allows me to engage a 7-year-old in discussions from a distance or at a distance? And so our work in the College of Ed has primarily been around teaching for transfer. So if we know that principle works, how do we support you in asking the right questions about a technology or a tool that will allow you to do that? So that's at the student level. In terms of early career teachers, those that left us in the spring or left us last year and have found themselves in these circumstances that weren't directly addressed, Virginia is partnering with the Virginia Department of Education, or JMU is partnering with the Virginia Department of Education and Virginia State to provide teacher induction support to 1,000 teachers across the Commonwealth. So these are teachers that are in their first 3 years of teaching, and we're going to provide induction support through instructional coaching and mentoring using master teachers or instructional coaches to support that upskilling. What's really cool is the number of JMU graduates that have not volunteered, but have stepped forward to serve as instructional coaches is quite heartwarming. So that's how we're going to upskill those that are recently graduates of the College of Ed. The final part is teachers that are in the field and are beyond those induction years. So they've moved into their 5th year and beyond. We're offering comprehensive support through partnering with our K-12 school divisions and offering professional development, again, guidance and support to say, look, we're right here with you because we're all in the same boat. But the guiding principle or the guiding idea behind all of this is that whether I'm in Zoom or whether I'm in Memorial Hall, the principles behind how we learn and the effects or the components of teaching and learning are the same. It's all about then the transfer. And so that's been our primary focus at all 3 levels: students, induction or early career teachers, and then those that are out in the field. From the leadership perspective, we're offering a very similar support system through our leadership programs to say, look, this is how we can partner with you to figure out what you're seeing on the ground, and then how we can adjust and provide those supports. Because quite frankly, it's a two-way street. We learn, they learn, and then we partner together. What is most amazing about all of this is the way that teachers have stepped up to say, look, I've got to find a way to connect. I know how to connect because that's what I learned at JMU. I just have to learn how to connect in a different way, but the connection is still there.
That's wonderful. I think that could describe so much of our work, is that we're learning to connect in a different way. I'm so heartened to hear what you're seeing with the students there in the College of Education and faculty as well. And I think all of our JMU students have really demonstrated some great adaptability in these last months that we've seen.
Absolutely. And we've been here before. I want to add this last part in. Some people often say this is so new and unique. It's actually not. And I don't want to minimize the COVID-19 pandemic. It is absolutely horrendous. And so this is not to minimize this. But in terms of education, we have been here before, and we have stepped up in the past the way that education is stepping up now. And when I say education, I don't mean us. I mean the K-12 classroom teachers. Katrina caused the universities in New Orleans to close for 4 months and the New Orleans school system to shut down for a year. So we've experienced significant interruptions to teaching and learning across the entire continuum. Just like the teachers did in New Orleans, we are seeing the same response from educators across the country who, and I don't mean to certainly make anyone uncomfortable, but the educators have stepped up and provided a dedicated response, and at the same time turned off the noise that is coming from other sources around that have other opinions about public education that, quite frankly, are completely inaccurate and false statements. Because if you're on the ground, you know that people are going above and beyond to take the skill set they have, what they know best about how students learn, and what we know about teaching and learning, and making it work in this current context so that there's not a gap in instruction, there's not a gap in learning, and there's not a gap in student growth.
Yeah, that's a great reminder to us all. Thank you for mentioning Katrina too, because I think for both us as professionals and students, it's great to remember other situations in which we've had to pivot and be creative, that we can do this.
Thank you.
Kay, are you here with us? Can you hear us at this point?
I am. I'm hoping third time's a charm.
Well, Kay, thanks so much. So again, Kay Harrison is joining us from the College of Health and Behavioral Studies. And Kay, our question for you is to share some of the ways that you've connected your students with employers in the past.
Sure. So I teach in the health administration program. And so probably the most traditional way that we connect with employers is through our 320-hour internship that our students do. Which I think is pretty clear and for most, and many of our students, even though most of those internships are unpaid, they come out with jobs with those employers, which is really very exciting. I think that it helps if we're able to match well what the employer is looking for and what the student's looking for. We also use guest speakers a lot in our classrooms. At least once a semester in every class, I'll have a guest speaker, and naturally, they're usually an employer. And I find that they resonate based on what they're doing. They're, in some subspecialty of health administration. So it could be strategic planning, or it could be managing volunteers, or it could be HR. And they're then connecting with one or two students is really saying, oh, that's what I really want to do. And what I try to get the students to pay attention to is it's not necessarily a lightning bolt that comes down and strikes them and says, oh, you want to be doing HR, but just when you have that sort of, oh, that's interesting moment, that's something that you can look into. We also have we have a fall speakers forum where we bring in a graduate of our program. And last year we were lucky enough to leverage the President's Madison Vision Series speaker. Her name was Carrie Owen Pleat, and she runs Wellstar Health in the Atlanta region. And what Carrie did that was unique, we benefited from her coming and talking to our students that morning, about 100 students, and then she did the Vision Series that night, but she brought a recruiter with her. And it was really rewarding and interesting to see the light bulbs starting to go off in the students' heads. So many of them think they have to default to going back home until they get a job. And I'm in maybe that different generation, but when we left home, and you went and you found a job, somewhere. But when they could see that they had some opportunity, potentially with Wellstar or another one, all of a sudden they weren't really excited about moving home and they want to explore that. So Carrie bringing that recruiter was great. My favorite connection has been through CAP, Career and Academic Planning. last January, Laura and I took about 40 students through Career Treks, a program that Laura oversees, to 2 hospitals in Richmond. One of them is an HCA hospital, which is a for-profit healthcare system, and the other was Bon Secours, which is a not-for-profit healthcare system. And they run very differently, and they feel very differently. And the students picked up on that immediately. And both organizations did such a nice job. One did a really good comprehensive tour for the students, and that was HCA, but there were several things that just so happened during the day that they got to see the caring that those employers put out for their patients and their visitors. And then some others resonated with the mission of Bon Secours, the not-for-profit healthcare system, and they did more of an interview panel that day. So I would say in each of these cases, the students just really enjoy the opportunity to hear what the employers are looking for in new grads. They want to know how they can be successful in their early years. And then they want to see a clear connection to how they can contribute to something bigger than themselves. And that's what I think is really exciting about this generation of students too, that's where they're tying their values. Salary is not what I'm seeing as their big driver, but where do they offer meaning?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting distinction in that they might be seeking meaning in their work. And the metaphor that you used earlier too about students and kind of this leaving home versus not leaving home. I guess when an organization does this right, that could become kind of the new home for students as they're graduating as well. Okay,
absolutely.
I wanted to follow up with you too, because you were starting to share this towards the end, but just are there any best practices that you would share with employers when engaging with students in some of the ways that you've mentioned?
I think, yes, I think number one is if they're looking to hire these students, what's unique about their organization? What's going to be the culture, in that organization, and how do they fit in? Or, what's going to make somebody successful? I'm thinking of this is kind of the most outlandish example, if you will, but we had an intern in a really good company in Northern Virginia, and their feedback to him halfway through his internship was that he didn't party with them enough, like in happy hours, and this young man is changed his life after having an issue with drugs and alcohol. And he called and he was very upset. And I said, look, you just found out these aren't your people, so being really clear about the culture, I think, is really a good element for students. And then my experience with our students is they really just want to see what are the soft skills that it's going to take to be successful. We can try to tell them, I think we have a little bit more validity maybe than their parents, but not much. And so when we talk to them about having to have really good communication and presentation skills, when the employer comes in and backs that up for us, that really helps there too. And then that gets the students excited about what those opportunities would look like. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, yeah, that was wonderful. And a fascinating example.
Isn't it? Yeah. And I'll say one other thing that I've noticed with students, especially the high performing, high GPA students, when they're going to look for a job, they're getting very frustrated. And I realize it's the first time in their life maybe that they've done the next right thing. They've graduated and they've put together a beautiful resume and they've had a great interview, and they're so used to, then they get the job. But when they don't get the job, it sort of brings them back to, and that's when I tell them, I'm like, look, the uncertainty of life is about to take over for you now. You've done all the right things, and you just got to keep believing in the process. we had a great student last semester who kept applying all through the semester. And I'm like, look, they're not worried about who they're hiring in January and September, at least in healthcare. And, you know, but if you want to keep doing that for practice, and the week she graduated, she had 3 job offers. And what I loved is she chose the lowest paying because of culture. And that was at UVA. So, and she's still thrilled with them today, even though she's been sort of in the terminated group because of COVID, at least temporarily. She's still so excited about working there because of the culture that they put forth at UVA. That was a good match for her. So I think culture, I would keep saying that, is just so big.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great reminder too, just kind of similar to what Morgan was sharing earlier when we were talking about promotions for employers, is just how can an organization share about their personality or their culture, because that'll be something that students are very interested in. Thanks so much,
Definitely, Definitely. You're welcome.
Okay, so our next panelist, Ruben, is joining us from the College of Visual and Performing Arts. Ruben, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
So we had a question for you that JMU Visual and Performing Arts students are gaining a conservatory quality experience grounded in a liberal arts context. What makes our JMU Arts students distinctive in terms of what they bring to the workforce?
Sure. First, thanks for having me. I love talking about our students because our students are extraordinary and they're such a vibrant group of young people. For sure, a lot of the recruiters might wonder what we might have to offer if they're very specific industries or businesses. But I think one of the things about studying the arts, visual and performing arts, is that you get an intersection of skills that can apply to almost any job or any task that you put your mind to. So to study the performing arts or visual arts requires certain things like discipline and focus, that you have to be really diligent and sort of honing a craft and honing your skill set over and over again through repetition and time, getting a lot of critical and constructive feedback, and then taking that critical and constructive feedback and making something positive out of it. And I think that that skill set, that discipline, and that ability to manage feedback and manage yourself is something that can be translated to almost any other job or any other situation. The other thing that happens for our students a lot is that almost everything they do is working within a group to meet a common goal. So that if you're in an orchestra or you're in a dance performance or you're in a play, whether you're the designer, the actor, whatever, you're all working together to reach this common goal, and you're using and leveraging one another's skill sets to make that happen. And that is something that happens in an office setting or a business setting all the time, figuring out how you can work with your teammates to meet whatever that goal is, and then how you're also leveraging what you bring to the table with the folks that you're working with. And I think that problem solving also translates into entrepreneurial thinking. And I really am surprised, but also love what Dr. Peaksme said about creating your path, because the motto for the College of Visual and Performing Arts is create your path, which means that, that we see our students as having the ability and having the skill set, both in terms of focus, discipline, but also tangible hard skills, that if there's something that they want out of the world or out of a job and it's not there for them, that they're going to create that opportunity for themselves. They're going to be entrepreneurial in how they're approaching the work that they're doing and the goals that they have. And you see that, I think, I'm very proud of this, that the College of Visual and Performing Arts has the highest percentage amongst the university of post-grad employment out of any other college. So even though it might seem crazy that CVPA has, we're art students and people who are focused on lots of things that are very specific, but our kids are going out there and using those skills to get all sorts of jobs and all sorts of opportunities, and creating those opportunities for themselves.
Certainly, and I'm also so glad that you spoke to kind of the entrepreneurial spirit that we see in a lot of our arts students. And it's also a great reminder, just for any of the employers here today, that any preconceived notions that they might have about certain majors, that our students are very complex. They have a wide range of skill sets. So to really consider a wide range of majors. And Ruben, we have another question for you too.
Sure.
So CVPA talks about how equity, access, and inclusion are moral imperatives and artistic obligations. How are JMU art students uniquely prepared to engage with our diverse workplaces?
I love that question, and thank you for bringing it up. We're really proud of that commitment and the work that all the schools in the college have done towards that. I think one of the things that I'll reiterate is that that sense of collaboration in a group is to get the job done, and that collaboration requires understanding and respecting and taking into account a lot of diverse viewpoints, a lot of diverse experiences, whether it's in a visual art setting, music setting, whatever it is. The diversity of thought and of approach and those intersections make the work better when it comes to artistic practice. And our students are very well used to having to hear someone have a differing point of view and a different perspective and figure out how to translate that into a shared experience. Because what we're doing is we're telling stories of the human condition, and we all share that condition. And so that sense of storytelling and that sense of sharing comes through, I think, our students' ability to work in any kind of group and to accept and understand and value all the different points of view that might be in a group, or the different perspectives, or even the different lived experiences that are in that group. And so it's not that I think our students are better at that, it's part of the culture of everything that they do. And so I think it gives them a leg up when they're in a diverse workplace, or when they're in perhaps a challenging workplace, that they have the skill set to communicate and to say, you know, like I'm used to telling the story. I know how to work with this kind of person, or I know how to advocate for myself and the situation, because they've done that before.
Yeah, that's such a good description of kind of what that might look like for them. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Our next faculty panelist, Jacqueline Nagle from College of Integrated Science and Engineering. Jacqueline, are you here with us?
I am. Hello, everyone.
Welcome. So our question for you is that the College of Integrated Science and Engineering offers a number of ways for students to engage with faculty and gain industry experience while at JMU through research, classroom experiences, and more. What are some examples of those skill building opportunities, and how do they prepare students for work in their respective fields?
Excellent question. I'm happy to answer this one. So some of the examples of skill building opportunities within our college is that we as faculty actually focus more on teaching skills rather than content in our courses, which is a culture shift, right? So it's not just students sit in the class and we lecture at them. It's more of we're engaging them in the material, and we're more mentors or coaches in these courses. And what that allows is for opportunities to practice those skills. And so we primarily do that with projects. And these are projects not just at the end of the curriculum, but all throughout the grade years in our programs within size. So some are small, like single semester, and they could even be smaller, like 2 or 3 weeks. But then we also have other scales, such as a year-long project, or even in engineering, we have a 2-year-long project, which is our capstone. And students experience a range of design in these contexts or in these projects. So some are just paper-based projects, so very constrained, to competition teams, to industry-sponsored projects, as was mentioned. And so then some of this can also branch out into those non-curricular experiences like research as well. And what's also very exciting is that our college makes an effort to also provide interdisciplinary experiences for our students to really practice the communication and teamwork necessary to work across units. And so what we see is that by having this multitude of project opportunities, both in and out of the classroom. It really helps students to work toward mastery rather than box checking of, oh, I did this, move on to the next. So they're really digging into the material and finding that intrinsic value. The other thing I can point out within our college is, and especially in engineering, is we focus on educating the whole person. So both technical and professional skills. And this really helps with handling the uncertainties of the workplace. We've had a number of graduates comment about this. So once they get into their first job, there's a lot thrown at them, but they're able to handle it, where they're seeing peers from other institutions are struggling. And a final example I'd like to point out is that a number of these projects are mentored projects by faculty and or industry professionals. And these can be faculty within our college, but also external to our college, so across the JMU campus. So it's really common for us to work across units for, say, a class project or even a capstone project. And this leads to also learning how to be mentored. So again, some of those professional skills. And so to answer that second part, like how do these skill building opportunities prepare students for their respective fields? They're project ready, they're people ready, they can communicate, they have leadership skills. So because they have all these projects, they understand the application of what they're learning. They understand project management. They're able to deal with that ambiguity in the problem space. For people ready, they can work together. They can also work individually. They can work with clients. They have experience building empathy with working with someone different from themselves. And really the communication, as other faculty have highlighted, is very strong with our students. They can get up in front of a room and share what they've been working on. They understand professional communication. And specifically within engineering, we also have a leadership program. And so a number of our students come away with that, with strong leadership skills. And so once they get into their first job, it's not uncommon for them to be promoted early within the first or second year because of everything that I just mentioned. You know, all these skill building opportunities, they're really prepared, project ready, people ready, communication and leadership.
I mean, those are amazing skill sets for our students to have at any time, and it's really fortunate, you know, that your programs were looking at making that shift even before COVID happened, because I'm sure that our graduates going out into the world right now, you know, to be project ready, people ready, have communication and leadership, that's what all organizations need. So perfect timing for that shift.
Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Our next panelist is Debbie Warner, joining us from the College of Science and Math. Debbie, are you here with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi, welcome.
I'm very happy to be here. It's always fun to be able to brag on our students and let you know what's going on here a little bit. I'm in the chemistry department, part of the College of Science and Math. In our college, we have a significant number of students that are going on to graduate school or pre-professional health, like medicine or something like that. And I feel like a lot of times the students who are looking for jobs right after JMU have been kind of pushed aside a little bit. And so the last couple of years, we've been making a concerted effort to try to get them more involved. And for 2 years now, we've done a program where we take an afternoon and bring in some alumni and professionals, recent alumni, a few professionals from the local area, and just give them a chance to talk with our students. We do some specific professional type programs like sessions on LinkedIn, resume writing, professionalism. But I think what the students really like is the opportunity to talk with the professionals and the recent alumni and find out, you know, what kind of failures did they have and how did they recover from that? What did they do at JMU that is now that they are using in their professional life? And sometimes it's very surprising to students, like being part of a club turns out to be integral to why they got a job. And that's something that never occurs to our students unless somebody in the real world tells them that. So anyways, that's been very valuable, I think, for our students the last couple of years. Moving forward, so this year, yeah, I don't know that that's going to happen because typically we've done this in January, February, and brought people to campus and had about 60 students attending. I am hoping, however, that we can maybe work on either a virtual event or spread out numerous smaller virtual events. Students can have good conversations with professionals online. It doesn't have to be a face-to-face. So I think there are ways that we can make this work moving forward.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear kind of what that might look like, knowing what the in-person version of that was like, and then what that might look like kind of in the semester or academic year ahead. Debbie, it was also really heartening to see at that last in-person event just how much engagement there was as far as the alumni participation and how many alumni came back to participate in that, to be able to share some great advice with our current students.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, Amy Strite had said, you know, sometimes a 20-minute round table is enough. After about 15 minutes, they start getting quiet. The kids did not want to leave after 20 minutes. Some of them said, no, we need more time. We need more time talking to these people. And, you know, so if anything, you know, that round table was so valuable. So, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, and so that was really great to see. Debbie, other than some of the things that you mentioned earlier, are there just any other things that you would hope for going forward to connect students with industry professionals in STEM?
Well, I think all of our departments have a seminar program where, and typically that has been focused on bringing folks representing graduate schools in. And for one thing, they come for free because they are recruiting students. But I think we are going to be making a concerted effort to try to bring in a little more diversity of careers and backgrounds, and let our students talk to more people who are working with BS or master's degrees and not just with PhDs. So I think that part of using the seminar program to bring more people in is a good way of keeping those connections going.
Very good. Thank you, Debbie. All right. So our next panelist is from the Hart School, representing the Sport and Recreation Management side of the school. Amika, are you here with us?
Yes, I am. I am
Wonderful.
here.
Welcome.
Yeah.
So students in the Hart School have a lot of experience when they graduate due to their required internship. Can you explain what this means for employers that hire your students?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question. And thank you all for being here and for having me here. I think it's important that I give a little bit background of the Hart School. The Hart School has 3 programs. We have our Sports and Recreation Leadership Graduate Program. Second program is the Hospitality Management Program. And I have my colleague here, the wonderful Reg, to talk about the hospitality side. And the third program is the Sports and Recreation Management Program. I teach in the Sports and Rec Management undergraduate program and in our Sports and Recreation Leadership Graduate Program. As a school, as the Hart School, we try as much as possible to engage in education that is very transformational, whether it's through our teaching, whether it's through our service or research and scholarship. On the sports and rec undergrad side, we offer 400 hours internship opportunities for our students and 90 hours practicum. And employers who end up hiring our students, in my opinion, get 3 things. The first is they get students who truly understand the concepts, theories, best practices that they've learned in class. They get students who are able to apply that to practice, and how they get this through all the assignments, case studies, internships and practicums that they go through. The second thing that employers get from our students is they get students who are well-trained, who have great skills, excellent abilities, great certifications, practical experiences, so they wouldn't have to really spend as much in spend as much resources in training our students. And I'll say the last thing that employers, organizations get when they hire our students, they get students that truly have great values. As a Heart School, we pride ourselves in teaching our students about the importance of having great values like fairness, like responsibility, and making sure that they end up working with organizations that their values match really well with those organizations. I think these are the three main things that employers who hire our students get from our students. I had the opportunity of supervising the academic component of our internships this summer. And at the end of the summer, employers, their supervisors, write performance evaluations for our students, and we get to read it and have discussions with their supervisors and our students. And I'd like to share one with you. And I would not use the student's name, but they said that this student was a great addition to their team. He showed a great passion for making differences during his internship time. He was very creative, goal-oriented, which was very helpful during challenging times we were facing. He made sure he learned every aspect of our organization and always checked to make sure he was making a positive impact. This student showed exactly what it takes for someone to be considered for employment with our organization. He has a great future ahead. So it's kind of cool to read this as a professor, because this is what we hope that employers see in our students. And it's good to read that the things that we teach them, the values that we try and instill, that our graduates have those.
Thank you so much for sharing that particular example. I loved that part about the student being passionate about making a difference, because I think that's something that we see in a lot of JMU students. Some of the employers here on the call today who might not be familiar, JMU has a slogan about being the change, which is part of a longer quote about being the change you wish to see in the world. So it's great to hear that that's being reflected as people encounter our students and graduates too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amika.
Thank you.
We also have Dr. Reg Fukursaki joining us from the Heart School as well, from the hospitality management side. Welcome, Dr. Fukursaki.
Great, very nice to be here, thanks.
So tell us a little bit, how has the pandemic impacted industries for your students and changed what their job search looks like?
Sure. Thanks. I guess before I respond to that, I would just like to reach out to each of the employers out there and thank you for the services that you provided over the last few months for all of your employees and associates. I think we in higher education are somewhat protected and don't necessarily know what it's like to look at somebody who's been with you for an extended length of time and say your job doesn't exist or you're furloughed for a while, or hopefully we can get back to you. So it must have been a most amazing and gut-wrenching experience. And I know as hospitality or as professionals in human resources that you've met and exceeded and have been the stabilizing force. So on behalf of all of us at JMU, thank you for your role in this very, very important aspect. The hospitality industry has been decimated. You know, as typical with faculty, we love facts and figures and can give you a variety of things, but I would like to just call your attention to a couple of things that to me are somewhat surprising. There are 5 million hotel rooms in the United States. That is, you know, approximately one, you know, for every, you know, 50, 60 people. Realizing that if the hotel room is empty one day, we do not have an opportunity to make that business up. 9 out of 10 employees by the NRA, not the Bang Bang one, but the National Restaurant Association, has said that 90% of our hourly employees have been laid off. The gross domestic product of the country, or really of the world, is 10% based on tourism. So you know, you were trying to sell things to your employees. We're trying to sell this to students and parents, that the hospitality business is where you should begin and start your career. And we still believe that. And the reason we believe that is because in many ways, and you know, I think all of us love JMU and love our students, and each of us share, I think, the perspective. A hospitality student brings 1,000 hours of professional work experience. They have a background in business. They also have the ability to be problem solvers, to deal from a human resource perspective. They have an operational point of view, and they understand the functional areas of business. I've been coordinating internships for the hospitality program since 1989. And this summer was really somewhat of an interesting time. And I think what we learned as the Hart School is that our students have the ability to learn no matter where they are. So I had someone who was a roofer in New Jersey. I had another student who basically sold insurance. I had a variety of students who worked in not-for-profits. Retail was also very, very popular for several of our students, and some stayed on as nannies and things on that lines. And what we learned is that business is business. What we have to do is to provide high quality customer care. We need to provide value for those experiences, and we need to treat our associates as well as our customers in a fair and equitable manner. And you know, because of all that, I think what we've learned is that in many ways, any internship that our students get is a valuable learning experience. So once again, thank you for that opportunity to help educate our students and to really make a difference in them.
Thanks so much, Reg. I really enjoyed hearing about those different ways that students pivoted into some different experiential learning that is still giving them some wonderful transferable skills. I think I heard a lot today, kind of a common thread about our students being problem solvers. So that's great to hear.
Right. Just in chat, the Hart School does have a coordinator of experiential learning. Her name is Jen Nelson. I did include her email. She could not join us today, but she would really be your key contact person to reach out to the Hart School. But then Ameka and I would love to be in touch with you as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to our faculty panelists. I know that I've learned a lot and really inspired to hear about all of the wonderful things that our students can bring to the workforce. We want to shift gears a little bit at this point to leave time for questions that you all might have. So thinking about what you've heard from our panelists today and thinking about ways that your organization might want to connect with either certain majors, kind of being involved in classrooms, or connecting with faculty in some other ways that we've heard about, like career tracks, like advisory boards, presentations, anything like that, or even case studies. So I know that there's one question in the chat. If there are other questions that people have, feel free to put them in the chat now so that we can go ahead and pose those to our panelists as well. So the first question that we have here is that some organizations are funded by the government and are unfortunately unsure whether fall 2020 will be on-site, virtual, or hybrid. Can anyone share ideas in regards to how recruiters should extend this information without losing a candidate's interest? So I guess this question could be answered either by any of our faculty panelists, just if you've heard of that in your industries, or any of our fellow recruiters.
Hi, this is Kay. I can take a stab at that maybe as a start. And I hope I understood the question correctly. But when students that have just graduated are coming and saying, hey, nobody's hiring, what should I be doing? What should I be working on? One of the things I tell them is to try to get in touch with recruiters, because right now, if somebody's on a hiring freeze, hopefully the recruiter still has their job and they might have a little bit more time to talk to them now than they might have, you know, in the future when things start to return to whatever normalcy that we will have. And so I'm encouraging them to reach out to the recruiters that way.
Yeah, and I might add something else. If I'm reading the question as that the students, that the job is there, but the concern over not knowing where the students would be. And I think that anchoring in relationship is a really strong way. So if there can be like a transition team of 2 or 3 people that the student knows they can reach out with, that it's clear that because they feel really insecure about reaching out to people. They don't want to bother people. They don't want to be a burden. So I think creating some systems whereby students know they can check in with mentors or a transition team consistently would probably help them feel more secure and that they're going to be taken care of regardless of what the situation is.
Yes, I think that's great advice, Jennifer. I know our department was doing some hiring this summer, and the main thing that students wanted to know is just, will the position be there? And just to have updates as we have them. So I think that relationship structure for being able to share some of that is really helpful. I'm seeing another question for Dr. Fukursaki. What motivated those hospitality students to pursue an internship in a field completely different from hospitality management this summer?
The faculty got together, and our typical expectation was 400 hours of related hospitality work during the summer. What we realized is that we were not sure quite what the summer was going to hold. So we, I think, became a little bit more flexible and said, what we're looking for are experiences. So I had a student who worked at Target, Chris, and Chris was just, I mean, he was enthralled by what a large organization has, the resources that it has available, and how strong the general manager was where he was working. You know, he continued to describe this individual, how fabulous she was, and to somebody to learn from. And that once again, what she was looking at was, or what he was looking at was effective leadership. So I think we as a faculty, I think we're a little bit parochial or somewhat limited in our points of view, and we're having a much broader discussion. One other component I think that we've found just from a historical perspective is the beauty of the summer internship is really it provides an opportunity for the business executive or the business sponsor or the company or the organization, whatever you would like to say. It's really a wonderful opportunity to see a person for a minimum of 10 weeks. You get to see how they function as part of your team, your culture, and more importantly, whether or not there's somebody that you would like to make the investment in on a full-time basis. So we had found that historically about 2 out of 3 of our students leave with a job offer. The asterisk is that we do require those students to come back for their senior year, so that the beauty for that is that we're able to work with them. One of the things they look at is a reflection that talks about looking backwards and moving forwards. And it really is that opportunity for them to make an assessment of, here are some things that I'm strong on, but also we have a semester or 2 semesters to work together to build on some of those skills that the employer said maybe might not be deficient, but may not be at a strong enough level. So, thanks.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point too about how internships often lead to full-time positions as well. I know there was another webinar that I participated in this summer where employers were discussing whether or not to cancel their internships in light of all of these uncertainties about, will it be virtual, will it be in person or a hybrid, what would we have them do? And a number of the employers really spoke in favor of keeping internships because it serves as your talent pipeline of people that you would potentially be interested in hiring full-time afterwards. I know that's certainly been something that we've seen in the NACE Experiential Learning Survey over the years. So let's see, it looks like we have reached the end of our time and also the end of our questions. Again, I want to thank our faculty panelists and also to say any information that Laura will be sending out after today with contact information. We do have a liaison here at JMU that serves each of the colleges. And so if there were particular majors that you had in mind that you'd like to connect with, then that could be a really great starting point. And that liaison can then in turn get you in touch with the faculty in some of those areas. So thanks again to our faculty panelists and guests